Hello, today is June the 16th, 2024. We're at the home of Carole and Woody Harper in Eatonton, Georgia, their new home after their many, many years in Palmetto. We're here with their longtime friend Susan Roper, and we just want to have them share some of their experiences, how they came to live in Palmetto, how they came to meet, and just some of their stories about their friendship. Carole, why don't you tell us how you came to live in Palmetto?
Well, I was born and raised in Palmetto. I was born July 26, 1937, and I was born on the Palmetto Mill Village. Both of my parents worked in the cotton mill, and we moved off of the village when I was about 8 years old to Main Street. I have one brother who is 3 years older, Kenneth, and my parents were Ray and Mary Jo Lassiter. I had a great childhood living on the village. We had a lot of friends on our street that was my age. So we played and we fussed and we cried and we'd pick up everything and carry it home when we got mad at each other, and then we'd haul it all back. But before we got home, we'd settle our arguments and we'd go back up the street, put it all back out again. My grandmother, who was my father's mother, was Hattie Lassiter, and I called her Nanny. Nanny always lived with us, and she was like a second mother to me. My grandfather Lassiter died before I was born, so she lived with my dad. I've been a friend of Susan and Steve Roper's at least 40 years. They came into our church when their kids were very small. Christy, I think, was probably two years old, and now she's 44. That makes me an old lady.
Well, let me ask Susan, how did you come to Palmetto? Because you're not originally from Palmetto.
No, I was born and raised in Decatur, and I played softball. And we came down to the children's home to play in a softball tournament, and I wanted my kids to go to live in a small town. So I started looking for houses to rent, and there was a lawyer in Atlanta that had, it was called the old McMillan Bachelor House, and he rented that to Steve and I, but he wouldn't sell it to us. And so Jean and Judy Chastain, who was, I think back then, the mayor, they had our house that we live in for sale for owner financing, and because we were a young broke couple, and so we were able to buy our house and from Jean and Judy. And you want to know how much we paid for it?
Yeah, go ahead.
$49,000.
Oh my goodness. And the house next door recently sold for how much?
$349.
Okay.
We did for that, but it was. Carole will tell you, it was run down when we bought it. It was run down.
So, and then how did you meet Carole?
Well, Carole was like the welcome lady of the church.
And that was Rama Church?
It was Rama, and we had, we all adored him. We had, Daryl Lobar was the preacher, and he was not like any preacher you ever met in your life. Still probably is.
What about year was that?
We moved there in 1982.
And he came in 1980 or 81.
Yeah, he had been there a short time, and there were a lot of young people. All of our neighbors, like Carole's son and his wife, were our friends because they were our age, and we would go to East Point to eat at that Chinese. I cannot remember the name of the restaurant, but
Chinese.
we would go up there, and so we got to be friends with them. And then, of course, back then church life was a big part, but it was community.
Mm-hmm.
It was not. I feel like sometimes there's been competition, but it was not like that in the early years.
Carole, at what point did you move from downtown Palmetto or Main Street Palmetto, and how did you and Woody come to live in the house on Hearn Road and Hutchinson Ferry Road?
Well, the first house we bought was on the Mill Village. It was on Cranford Street. And it was originally built for Claude and Mary Lee Morris, who was superintendents. He was superintendent of the cotton mill. And when they sold, the mill closed and they sold the houses on the village, that house was for sale, and it was probably about the nicest house on the village. And we paid $49 down on the house. The house we paid it off in 10 years, $49 payments, and paid it off in 10 years. And it was a wonderful old house with large rooms and beautiful, beautiful old house. And I'm still, after 60-something years, miss that house. We moved from there to the house we live in now. And Woody's uncle, Charlie Harper, was a builder in Peachtree City. And he agreed to build our house. And we built that brick house out there and lived there 60-something years. And now, because of our health, we've had to move. And we're close to our daughter, Lisa Gord, and it's about 5 minutes from her house. And it's a new house, and it's small. But that's why we left Palmetto, and I still miss Palmetto.